Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to COASTER-net Update. We've got some breaking news out of Sandusky, Ohio, where this morning we learned, shockingly, out of nowhere, Cedar Point is putting in another roller coaster. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Cedar Point is putting in its 19th coaster, depending on how you count coasters. Cool. And it is called Siren's Curse. So, Jeff, a little bit different than what we were talking about last show, right?
Yeah, I think we started by saying there's absolutely positively no way that this is a coaster. So it's a
And we
pretty
said
cool
we threw
coaster.
enough stuff where we could be right out onto the field, and we're still wrong. Well done. Well done, COASTER-net, with your sleuthing as always. But we were right on a few things, and maybe not us, but I'll call out the head of Insiders of the Point right now, Jake Hammonds. We said on the last show that he spotted markings over on the old Wildcat plot exactly where this coaster's going. So I guess let's start there. That I absolutely love where this coaster's going and how it's going to transform the Iron Dragon Midway. It was called Celebration Midway at one point. It was called the Iron Dragon Midway for as long as I could remember. And it's going to transform this. They're taking out the stage. The stage is gone. The stage that famously hosted greats like Carly Rae Jepsen. I don't know if you remember that one. The park was absolutely a zoo that day. But that the stage was kind of like Matt Ouimet's big thing when he came in and took power. He wanted to like increase the live entertainment of Cedar Point. And over the last few years, we've slowly seen that stage be de-emphasized and other things take over. Like if you watch the videos here, we saw the boardwalk nights happen out on the boardwalk. So the stage hasn't really been utilized as much as it used to be. So that's gone. That's gone off the Midway. This coaster is going to take up exactly that plot that we were talking about on the last show, the old Wildcat plot into the old Cedar Dorms plot. This has been a plot that we've been kind of targeting for the last few years, ever since they removed the Cedar Dorms off of that area. And it's kind of just been lying vacant there. The monster trucks were there for a season. And ever since then, nothing's gone in there. And now all of a sudden, we got a Vekoma Tilt Coaster, right? So what were your thoughts on the ride itself? Maybe actually talk about the coaster here, right?
Yeah, so I mean, it looks kind of cool. It was definitely unexpected. We hear from the Dippin' Dots guy that this is the one that was supposed to go to Six Flags Over Mexico, and in fact, it's in Mexico and it must be on its way.
Well, and
So
originally it wasn't even supposed to go to Mexico. This was
yeah,
originally
this is like a wandering coaster,
this
right?
is like where in the world is Cannon all over again,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That is what this is. So originally it's supposed to go to Energylandia. You can see
right.
concept art all over the internet. People have been posting it all day long. Supposed to go to Energylandia in Poland. For some reason, they backed out of the contract. Six Flags swooped in, bought up
Yep.
the ride, sent it to Mexico, with the expectation that it would go into Six Flags Mexico. There were rumors say that I don't know if I absolutely believe that there was some kind of like permit issues in Mexico. I don't know if I believe that. I think they just wanted to move it to America, especially since it's like if you follow Vekoma, it's really hard to get a Vekoma ride right now. That Vekoma is like book solid with coasters in Europe and everywhere else around the world. So it's really hard to get a Vekoma coaster. So the only way you can get one is basically stealing it from another park, and
Yeah.
they've
So
done
this
it
is
twice
the
now.
Yeah, that's the second one they've stolen, both opening next year, hopefully. Um, so I'm glad, yeah, I'm glad that that we're talking about this plot because it definitely makes a lot more sense with the theme of the Siren's Call.
Yeah.
And you know, if they muddied up the frontier area with this, I think that would have been the wrong choice. But yeah, I love the interaction that you were talking about with the Midway. We're gonna have two big drop spectacles basically right next to each other for people on the ride and for people on the midway with Valraven. And I guess we're going to have a good head to head of which is the better,
Yeah,
straight down.
I thought it was an interesting choice. I think the tilt coaster is an interesting choice because it kind of has that same concept of a dive drop. It's a lot shorter though.
Yeah,
It's only 180 feet tall, so it's one of the shorter coasters at Cedar Point.
a different gimmick, but it's still cool.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely still cool. I like the 48-inch height requirement on it. I absolutely love the idea of the LED lights on the train. Um, I think those are always awesome when they're done well. I know sometimes like it's hard to keep up that stuff like over time. The maintenance on them, we see sometimes with Gatekeeper the lights flickering on and off, and if they're on or they're off. But I think that's going to add a whole lot. I know a lot of the parks like I've been to Adventureland with Monster and I've been to Knott's with Hang Time with the chaser lights on the track. I feel like this ride's going to have the same effect, but the lights are just going to be on the train instead.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that elsewhere as well, but and it's cool. Like Tatsu does it or did it with the wheels, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've seen plenty of Japanese coasters where like they really light up the trains nice, and it definitely adds a cool element. Um,
Well, and Gila Velocicoaster has it, Helix has it. So a lot of the coasters now, it's not out of the norm. It's not out of like, oh, this is strange that they're doing it. I think it's going to look really cool. Um, Yeah, and the coaster itself looks like it's got some cool elements. Like outside of the tilt coaster, I was showing it to a whole bunch of people today, especially in my classes, and they're all like, "Oh, hell no, I'm not writing that." Was the general consensus with the tilting. And what's funny is, being from Chicago, I showed them Rock Sasha as well, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, maybe I could do that." Someone were like, "Oh, maybe, maybe not." And then when you show them the tilt coaster, like, "Oh, hell no." And this was the big, social media push from years ago. These tilt coasters were all over social media and people going, "Oh, I would never do that." Even my dad was like, "Oh, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to have like one single axle determining my fate." And I'm like, I don't know. I think it's like and it's not like tilt coasters are out of the norm either. Like we've seen them in other countries, tilt coasters. We
yeah,
also have a tilt coaster that's been in America for a very long time. Do you know which one it is?
you know,
I-
uh,
you're
are
you're
you
gonna
going to
be
say
like, oh,
Protoland? Are you
it's
going to say
it's
Protoland?
Gringotts. It's Gringotts at
Oh, all right.
Universal. That Gringotts has a tilt section and it's in the dark, so a lot of people don't realize what's actually happening. But it's a tilt coaster, and I will a lot of people on are like, oh, that's not a tilt. No, it's a tilt coaster. Like it does exactly what a tilt coaster does. You're just a lot closer to the ground than you would be on one of these other ones. But the rest of the layout actually looks really good too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people have been freaking out about the new gen Vekomas, or at least all of our friends and our European correspondent. If Danny was on the show where we got everything wrong, he would have seen this. He would have said, like, you know what? In Europe, they've got awesome Vekomas. And the it's two corkscrews, but it totally looks different. Like the profiling looks different. It's a lot more focused on swooping and turning back and forth, and it looks like it's fun. It's kind of the same way when RMC jumped in the game, Intamin and B&M. I feel like they've started changing their profiling. So when you see that, it just looks different. It looks like something I haven't tried before. And I
Well,
think that's what makes it the big sell.
yeah, and they're super smooth. I was on Soapbox Racers and Good Gravy. They're butter smooth now. This is not the Vekoma of old days that a lot of people may remember Vekoma if you haven't been keeping up with stuff overseas. We kind of talked about this with the Flash Coaster too, that this is
Yeah,
a brand new Vekoma company and they're super smooth. They've always been pretty well designed. It's just been the smoothness. They've got the
yeah.
nice vest restraints on them on these trains. I think this is going to be a really good ride. Um, and I've always said Vekomas aren't world beaters, but they're good rides to fill out a lineup. You know, when
Yeah,
I
I'm
think of
sure
a
that's what this will be.
coaster,
Yeah.
yeah, and this has that gimmick to it where it's a tilt coaster, so it's going to have that extra layer of. I think if this was just like a normal Vekoma coaster, I would be like, okay, that's cool. Um, but I don't know if Cedar Point needs another filler coaster. But with the tilt aspect, I think it adds that other layer of uniqueness to it, where we don't really see them a whole lot in America. I know we got the one down in Coda Land that's supposed to be built.
Nobody's seen that one yet.
No one's seen that one yet. And then we really, there's rumors of other stuff out there, but and there's the one online from overseas. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like this new concept that's really not new, that's kind of always been there. I'm gonna tell my dad that because he's been on Green Gots. I'm like, you've already been on one of these. I just
Yeah.
realized that he went on Green Gots too. So, dude, you've already been on a tilt coaster. You don't even know.
Yeah, I mean the only one I've tried is Big Bear Mountain, and that was surprisingly fun for a little coaster. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think you're right. If it had like a lift hill or a launch, it wouldn't sell tickets and it wouldn't capture everybody's imagination quite like this tilt coaster. I think you and I would probably be interested, and other enthusiasts would be like, okay, here we go. This is our first chance to ride one. But the fact that it's a tilt coaster is that extra layer of excitement, and I think that will help them sell tickets next year.
There has been a few people saying that maybe it should have gone to Kings Island, and I'm like, oh, because they have that big vortex plot over
Mhm.
there, and maybe it doesn't fit. Maybe the dimensions were wrong. I don't know. I don't think it. I think it would fit. If it fits in this plot, I feel like it would fit in that plot too. And it might have been a really good addition to that park as well. But for some reason, they went with Cedar Point here, and I don't know if it's because to smooth over stuff. With all the negative press they got this past summer with Top Thrill 2 that they want to put something new in. But speaking of that, the press release
Mhm.
also said that Top Thrill 2 will be in operation next year. So to me, that means they're not giving up on this, right? I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're going to scrap it. They're going to get rid of it. They're going to claim the insurance money on it, like Warner Brothers Discovery, and scrap everything. And I don't feel like that's happening here. In the press release, it said Top Thrill 2 will be operating next year.
Yeah, and that means that they're going to have two shots at the Golden Ticket Best New Ride Award. Maybe their the best attempt ever.
The best attempt
A
ever.
la, a la Flying Turns.
I
Flying
love
Turns.
flying turns where, yeah. The other interesting part of the press release in there is it says that they're shooting for a summer opening. So this might be the first time in a long time where Cedar Point doesn't open up, or I should say, doesn't that they're not aiming to open up the coaster on opening day because obviously we know
Right.
of this past year. Plus, there's a lot of other circumstances like Windseeker didn't open up on opening day. Shoot the Rapids opened up in June, but those were because of delays and stuff with construction. But this one's kind of already like setting the tone that it might not be open until the summer. I don't
Well,
know, like because to me the plot is already cleared that we've been talking about this place being cleared for a while. There's probably a lot of concrete work they have to do with tearing up stuff. It by the renderings, they're going to be adding in a lot of grass
yeah.
on
And
into this
they
area.
do have to move the road and like get all of that approval done if they haven't already before they can begin. But they're also going to have great access to the building site. I mean, it literally has a road right there. They don't have to
Yeah.
disturb the park. So like once they sort out the area, I'm sure it'll be
And
fine.
then, like you said, they have to actually ship the ride. We
Yeah,
think
it's
we
still
think
got to
it's in
wander up
Mexico.
north.
Yeah. And I will say we're not positive that's in Mexico. We think it's in Mexico. Um, every word we've heard is that it's in Mexico already. So we think it's there. And I don't know if the whole ride's there either, to be honest. Because
That's
just to
true.
be
They
clear,
might have started staging it and stopped.
right? Who knows? Just to be clear, it's never been built before either. So it's not like
Oh,
they built it and then taking it down. It's never been built. It's a brand new coaster. It's just that the metal's been sitting around different places for a while. But so onto the theme. I like the theme. I like the name Siren's Curse. I thought it was creative how the N has the tilt coaster in it. Um, I'm looking forward to see if they add any theming to the ride itself. I know a lot of people are like, oh, there's no theming on the ride. Well, I think after Valraven, where if you were ever going to do theming on a ride, Valraven was the time to do it. And the fact that it was not done, I think we can just set aside the whole let's theme this. Let's hope for theming. I think the best we can hope for is a cool ride sign, which that whole midway now is like we talked about before, is now the monster midway. Are we
yeah.
Are we coining it right now? The Monster Midway, not the Monsters of the Midway. I'm from Chicago. This is the Monster Midway. So you got Iron Dragon, you got Rougarou, you got technically Valraven. It's really on a different Midway, but Valraven's right there. You'll be able to
Yeah,
see
but
it.
people
Now
are
you
going to
got,
watch it from there too.
and then you got Siren's Curse. So we got the Monster Midway. We're coining it here today. So trademark copyrighted. We're gonna do it right now. um, so I'm hoping we get a really cool ride sign out of it. And I'm hoping that like the station, they've done a really good job with stations, especially across the chain. Like even things like Tumbili at King's Dominion had
That's
a
a lot of cool
like
station.
like a lot of like cool little things that made you feel like you're in there. Like Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion has like the apple orchard. Mystic Timbers at King's Island has a really cool station. So I'm hoping they do something. It's not on the renderings yet, but I don't feel like those renderings are complete for the station at least. Especially
The,
how
the
you
more
get
you the more you look at the details, the more it just kind of looks like it's a place filler.
yeah, and especially for that stuff. So I'm hoping we get something cool out of that. Because the Siren is such a cool aspect with the music and the song. I'm sure they're gonna have, they love their new songs now. So like Top Thrill 2 has its own little soundtrack. I'm sure they're gonna compose their own soundtrack for this.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping to get something in the station that maybe lights up or
Yeah.
maybe an
Maybe Splash of
animatronic I
Blood.
think would be going too far, but maybe a statue of some sort would be cool of a siren because like I don't know because and the other thing I heard today, I did hear one other thing. Who was telling me? So some of my friends once again on Insiders of the Point, I'm in a little group chat with them. They said uh that the lift till it says so they're quoting something here I don't know what from the press release maybe riders will hear the echo of the sirens chilling melodies as they ascend an old 160-foot tall Lake Erie shipping crane. So that's going to be the gimmick with the tilt. I think it's going to be like a shipping
Okay.
crane. And if you look at the old Energy Landia photos, it actually had like gears on it. So I don't know if they're actually going to theme out the actual coaster structure, which would be new for Cedar Point.
That yeah, that would be. I mean, it does have like a shape to it all by itself. Um,
Yes, it does.
I do believe these trains have onboard audio though, as far as like sound effects and whatnot.
That would be cool too. And that would be something I think you would advertise though if you were to do onboard audio. And maybe I just missed it, but I don't think I remember seeing that.
I don't know. I feel like I've
Um,
heard breaking about that before.
yeah. So, but like if you like theme out the actual track itself a little bit, and then you have like I don't know, something, some lighting effects. Like everyone talks about Banshee being an amazing night ride because of the lighting effects. I think you could do something very similar here with Siren's Curse and have it be a night ride experience. Like you're in an area that's kind of like dark enough, you're gonna go out by the lake. Like this coaster is gonna be almost on the water. Like it goes right out there. You're gonna be basically two car roads away from the water at the furthest point, I think. Based on I've been trying to piece together stuff and figure out where things are and everything over the course.
Once you go down that drop, it does do a turn, and then you're basically facing away from the park, away from the midway for most of the
Yes,
ride, and it's
yes.
stay low to the ground as well. So, it could be dark, and it does have like a trench, so it will
A
do the Lake Erie,
tunnel, right?
yeah, Lake Erie
Right?
Monster Dive right through the tunnel,
What
and
is going on here? We have a tunnel underground at Cedar Point. Like this is unheard of. People have been talking about tunnels at Cedar Point forever, and like especially with Valraven and oh, we're gonna have a tunnel, and all of a sudden out of nowhere we have a tunnel. So I don't know. You could put stuff in the tunnel. I don't know if you will, like lighting things or water things, or I think at some point you're gonna need to make it feel like you're in
that
water.
would be a good place for like a big blue or green light.
Yeah, right. I think especially when it has like the ripples in it. I have some like water lights and they're pretty cool. So but I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of excited about all of it. I like the name. I like the ride. It's a solid ride. I don't think it's going to be a ride that people will be like, "Oh, that sucks." I think it's going to fit in the Cedar Point collection, but I think it's going to fit in. I know we've had this conversation about, coasters, step up coasters and stuff, and the tilt aspect does kind of throw all that off. But it is a 48-inch height requirement. So you're talking about
So, so is Steel Vengeance.
so is Steel Vengeance. Um, so it's I guess it's a sliding scale on what you count as step up coasters
Yeah.
nowadays. I don't know. I was just
Apparently,
thinking,
you listened to nothing from what I said. It doesn't matter
no,
how tall you are.
no,
It's
it
whether
doesn't
you're
matter how tall it is.
ready.
Yeah, so it's hard to call it a step up coaster, but it is nice that um kids will be able to ride it with 48 inches. I think that's going to be a cool aspect of it. But I do think
It
that
is.
the tilt aspect's going to chase some kids away.
Yeah, you do have a lot of B&Ms, and they all have the higher height restrictions.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice to get like one more in there. Plus, you got Iron Dragon right there. So a nice little 1-2 punch. But if you make it a really good nighttime experience, that's what I'm hoping for at this point. Like, I love everything that's been done here. I absolutely love this midway. This is the last midway that I thought really needed a lot of work. And they've really fixed this up, and bringing that more greenery and more trees and is going to make that feel real nice over there. It's always
Well,
felt like an open midway, maybe too open even when Wildcat was there. And now I think it's going to feel, even from before when I even started going to the park, because this kind of like was the gateway to Frontier Town a little bit. And I think it's going to kind of go back to that now, which is kind of nice. And if they make it a nighttime experience, I hope they are.
mm,
I think it's gonna be even better because I'm hoping this is like the Banshee of Cedar Point here is what I'm hoping for.
yeah, and it'll draw people to the area because the only reason you were over there was you were going to Millennium Force or leaving it,
Yeah.
and everybody was in the back of the park. This will give people a reason to kind of walk around and move around a lot more. I
And it
felt
kind of
like,
bridges
why
the
am I
park
going down to
too.
that area? Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I like it because, well, it bridges the park too because it's like you have the Valraven, you have that whole front half, and now, like you said, there's stuff to do along the
Yeah.
way, and Iron Dragon's there, but you know, I love Iron Dragon, so
Yeah.
I can't speak.
Well, Millennium Force is there too. I mean, like it creates a nice
Yeah.
little bunch that you can do together.
Yeah. So yeah, so I really like what they've done. It was a huge surprise to me. And we'll see how it goes and when it actually opens. I'm actually hoping for a later opening date for me would actually work out in my favor. I don't like the late April opening dates. It makes life difficult for me to get out there. Even though I did multiple times, just more difficult to get out there late April. It's easier late May or early June to get out there and do some fun stuff for maybe Coaster Mania. But any final thoughts here on the ride?
No, I am looking forward to when I do return to being able to check this out too. I'm hoping that it's successful and people like it so that more of these come around because every time we put in something good and we get a couple of them throughout the chain, it kind of, I feel like they always just get better at making them. You know what I mean? So it always
Yeah,
gives
and
us
and,
some
and
variety.
Vekoma's a company that I've been asking to see more of in America, and we found ways to get them here, maybe in a backhanded type way. But they're getting here now, and I'm hoping to see more Vekomas here because everything I've heard of is that they're really solid rides from overseas. You talk to Danny and Alex and everyone seems to like the Vekomas for the most part. They're not top 10 coasters, they're not top 20 coasters, but they're solid additions to a park, and every park needs that. And they're kind of like the arrows of the new day is like, arrows were the solid coasters. You need something to fill up your space and to have people, go into line and enjoy it. And I feel like this is it now. So um hopefully we see more Vekomas in America. I would be all for that. I love it. I love it. So see. As always, I am Andrew Barchek from Chicago, Illinois.
Jeff Goodman from Long Island, New York.
Right on, Red Warriors.